Welcome back to Random Rod Shop. Well, in the compilation, in the compilation video, you saw that I got the International started, and I wanted it started so I could wrap up that video, but it was running a little rough. So I started digging into it, and what I discovered was the entire driver's side bank wasn't firing. And, you know, I'm kind of an old hot rodder, right? I'm used to carburetors. And on a carbureted motor, each cylinder is independent, right? It gets fire, it gets fuel, it doesn't really depend on anything else. What I'm learning is these fuel-injected motors, that computer doesn't operate the way my brain thinks. So it decided to take down the whole bank. There was not one of the exhaust manifold legs was getting any heat. So everything was dead. So I just started on the normal stuff. Again, you know, I'm used to working on the old stuff, so I do what I know. Is it getting fire? Is it getting fuel? Normally I would check the timing, but that's a little problematic on these for me. But the truck was running, so I'm like, okay, well, the timing must be close. So the first thing I did was I pulled the plugs out and checked the compression. So on one, let's see, on this side, so 1, 3, 5, and 7, right? Anyway, the 4 on the passenger side. The first, or sorry, the 4 on the driver's side. The first two, they've got about 150, and this is cold. I didn't squirt any oil or anything in the cylinder, just cold and dry. They've got about 150 psi. I put when I got to the third one, so number 5, it has about 125, 130, so it's a little low on that one. And then when I got to the last one, it's sitting at about 150. Now, ideally, I wouldn't want that third one to be low, but you know, my experience says that thing's gonna run, right? 125 is enough to run. So I'm like, okay, well, compression's good. Then I dug out, I've got a Noid light kit for you folks that may not be familiar with that. Basically, it's a little light. Let me see here. Let me get the right one. I think that's it right there. Anyway, it's a little light. You take the wire off the injector, you put this little light in the plug-in, and then you crank it over. If it flashes, kind of, you know, just like a timing light, then you're getting power to the injector. So I tested each one of the injectors, and they're all firing, right? All of them lit up the light. So I got compression. I got power going to the fuel injectors. Then I went to the plug-in on the coil. There's a main plug-in for the coil pack. And, you know, looking online, trying to find a wiring diagram. And my recommendation to you is if you're going to chase this, go find the one for your year model. In this one, it turned out it was the orange and the black wire. So the black wire should be grounded, and the orange wire should have 12 volts on it. When you turn the key on, the orange wire should have 12 volts. Okay, well, I got that. Then I got out the spark tester, and I plugged this in to the, well, in this case, this ain't the right one for this. I had to pull a plug wire off and put a plug wire on here, and had to. So sorry, that's the setup. You got one end that's grounded, one end goes on the ostensibly it's supposed to go on the coil, but I had to plug it on the plug wire. So I put this end in the plug wire, this end on the ground, and cranked it over. If that lights, then the coil is sending power to the spark plug. So I tested all 4 of them, And all the spark plugs were getting power, and they're brand new spark plugs. I didn't actually pull a spark plug out and test it, but I just made an assumption that all 4 of them couldn't be bad. Okay, so we got fire. We got, ostensibly, we got fuel. The fuel injectors are getting power. I went ahead and I unplugged the O2 sensor on that bank. What I learned was the O2 sensor, it could go bad and drive either a lean or a rich condition. So if it's telling the computer things are too rich, or let's see, if it's telling the computer that everything's too lean, then it can actually dump enough fuel in there to just drown out all the cylinders. And apparently that's a thing on these LS motors. So I unplugged the O2 sensor on this side. Everything I read said that it should sort of just kind of pick a number in between. I think it's supposed to, the voltage on that sensor is supposed to fluctuate between 0.3 volts and 0.8 volts. And if you unplug it, the computer just puts it at like, I don't know, 0.4, 0.5, maybe, I'm trying to remember, like 0.477. So either way, it just sets a voltage so it doesn't confuse the computer. Now, you know, if it starts and runs, you can't really run it like that because it's probably going to run rich because it's not adjusting due to the load of the engine. But anyway, I unplugged that, so that wasn't a problem. And still wouldn't fire on that side. I'm getting no heat at all out of that side of the engine. Okay, fire, fuel. I assumed fuel, and the timing. Since the engine run, right, you heard it run at the end of the other video. It was only running on 4 cylinders, which surprised me it runs on 4 cylinders, but it does. So kind of running out of options here. So I'm like, okay, well, we haven't validated that the spark plug is sparking, and we haven't validated that the fuel injector is putting fuel into the cylinder. So I pulled out the plugs. I pulled them out when I did the compression check, but kind of a whole head up ass syndrome. I didn't pay any attention. Put the plugs back in. So I pulled without really looking at the plugs. I should have really scoped out the plugs, but I didn't. So I pulled the plugs back out and I really looking at them. And the first cylinder on the driver's side, that thing has never combusted in its life, right? It was pristine. The second one, it sort of had tried a couple times. I mean, the porcelain was just a slight bit dirty. The third one, yeah, it was black, so maybe it was trying to fire. The fourth one, it was sort of dirty. And I'm like, okay, well, I put the plug in the spark plug wire, turned it over, and it sparks. Did that to all of them, so they all sparked. I'm like, okay. We're running out of options here. We're running out of options. So I pulled the fuel injectors out, and I'm going to take the camera off because I've got the fuel injectors set up here on the table. I want you to see these. Okay. So I'm going to try to zoom in here. Let's do the passenger side first because it was running. There we go. So there's the back one. And there's the, come on, there we go. There's the third one back. So let's see, that's the even side. So that would be 6. And there is the second one back, which if we're counting here, I think that's 4. And did that, yeah, there we go. And here's the front one. Okay, you know, they're not pristine, but let's look at the driver's side. So here is the back one. Here, so that one will be 7. Here's 5. And then we've got, let's see, do I have this right? Yeah. So here's number 2, or sorry, this is number 3, which is the second one back. Where is it at here? Here we go. There it is. That was a problem. I don't think, since that thing wasn't wet when I pulled it out, there is no fuel getting through that thing. And then number 1. That one was dry as a bone too. Come on, let's see if we can get that thing to focus. There we go. So it was dry as a bone. None of those look as good. None of those on the passenger or driver's side look as good as the one on the passenger side. Now, I'm not saying the one on passenger sides are fantastic, but at least they were putting fuel through, and I'm not. We could probably argue about whether number 3 was putting any fuel in, but number 1 I keep going 1 and 2 because I'm looking at 1, 2, 3. So driver's side 1, 3, 5, 7. Anyway, these 2, they were dry. There was no fuel getting through those. So what I did was I went and pulled the entire fuel rail off of another engine I've got, and they looked a little cleaner, right? So let me put the camera back up here. So I went and pulled the fuel rail off of another engine, and I just got the fuel rail, the injectors, and everything. And they weren't perfect, but at least they looked like they were all wet, and that maybe they would work. And sure enough, I put the fuel rail in there, and I bet it didn't crank over 2 times. And it started up. And that's what you heard in the introduction there. I was like, well, golly gee whiz. Anyway, if you have, apparently this is a big problem with LSs. I guess the one piece that I didn't have this trouble, and I didn't even check, I guess I didn't go down the path to check this because I just checked to see if there was a negative and a power at the coil. But there's actually a ground right behind the power steering pump that on these motors has a tendency to break. I'm gonna get a flashlight, and it's easier to see with this engine because I don't have the fenders, and it's not a Silverado, right? You can actually get down in there. So I'm gonna get the camera down, and I'm gonna see if I can get a light in there, and I'm gonna show you where this thing is at. And the reason I'm kind of pointing this out is apparently this is a problem. I've never had it happen to me, but apparently this is a deal. So let me get the camera down, and I'll get a light pointed in there, and I'll show you where this thing is at. So that's the exhaust manifold on the driver's side, and right there, that bolt head that you're seeing right there, the ground cable attaches to it from the battery, but also what attaches to it is the ground for your coil. And apparently that little wire that's connected to that eyelet that bolts on there has a tendency to break. So I can imagine that is a bear to get to in a Silverado or Tahoe or something like that. And this one, it ain't no big deal. I can stick an extension in there and grab it. But in normal situations, I bet that's a bear. And it ain't something you're going to find just by looking in the engine. You can't see that wire's broke. So anyway, from a first pass, if you drop, if you happen to have an LS and you drop a bank, that's the ground that you need to check. Now there's 2 other grounds that are primarily on this engine. I don't know, that bolt right there goes in the back of the head. There's one on each head. There's a ground wire on each one of those. So you need to make sure those are hooked up and not broken. But you can actually, even in the Silverados, you can manage to get back there. This one down here, this one's a bear. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. if you happen to have problem with losing an entire bank. The way I understand it is if you lose that ground, you'll get a misfire code pop up on a scanner. The interesting thing about the problem I had is there were no codes. I had no codes on this engine, which really confused me. Okay, well, let me put you back up there and let's see what else we're going to get in trouble with. So I actually don't remember what video it was in. Maybe a couple of videos ago, I was asking and nobody's responded, so I was asking if anybody knew of any way to get leaves out of that cowl area, because I could not figure out how to get in there. At the time, I was thinking, man, I'm gonna cut all these spot welds out here so I can get in there to clean that out, because I sure don't want those leaves and stuff to stay in there. It's probably already bad enough, because I don't know how long they've been in there. So I went down the pasture, looking to replace this inner fender right here, because I showed you the small hole where the battery was sitting in this one. So I went down to the other pickup to steal the one off the other pickup. As you might expect, they're old pickups. They both look about the same, so we're gonna fix this one. But while I was down there, one of the trucks I got, that heater box is all busted. And with it being busted, this is all gone. There's actually a hole right here to the vent. So what I'm thinking is, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take this off and see if I can snake a vacuum and suck all those leaves and stuff out of there and clean that mess up. So hang with me here. I'm gonna put it on the tripod. I'll end up, doing the fast forward thing. And we're gonna take this off, and if I can get a camera in there to kind of show you, I'll show you what I'm dealing with. So I'll get back to you. Sometimes my brilliance just amazes me. Well, I had my head stuck up underneath here, struggling to get them two bolts out. It occurred to me, why the hell didn't you pull the fender off? I mean, it's only held on by a couple of bolts at this point. Okay, I'm gonna pull the fender off, guys. to make it a little easier. Oh, I gotta be careful here. That box is plastic. Well, looks like somebody's been here before, because this thing's already broke. Okay. Oh! Merry Christmas. Now we got dirt daubers, we got wasp. Yeah, what do you think the chances are that heater core that's all green is any good? I might have my suspicions. I might as well pull the bolts out and let that thing drop on the inside, because it looks like we're going to have to get to all of it. Anyway, there's a hole I was talking about. I guess it makes sense that the heater would get fresh air, so I just didn't think too hard about it. I know there's there's a vent from inside the cab, but I kind of assumed it went this way. I didn't realize there was a hole right there. Well, it appears to be loose. I'm wondering if there's a couple of more, because this is part of the heater box and defroster box. There's a couple of bolts over there coming through the cab. I wonder if that holds that end of the heater box on, because this seems to be loose on this side. Well, International sure didn't make it easy. There's a damper, or not a damper, but there's an airflow duct, if you will, in here. Let me get the camera off. All right, so there's a duct right there. Now the problem is that's keeping the leaves from coming around. Let me see if I can shine you through the grills so you can see from the top and see what I'm seeing. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not. Let me see if I can get this stuff out of the way. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that is all full of leaves and trash, and it looks like it goes all the way down. Okay. Well, I thought I was being clever, but I'm still not sure that I have found a solution. I think I'm going to see what it's going to take to get that air duct out of there, because I think I'm gonna have to get that out of there so I can get the vacuum hose in there and drag that stuff out. Well, all right. Let me do some poking and prodding, and I'll get back at you when I figure something out. But right now, I think that air duct's got to come out. Success! Okay. All right, there's a vent inside there that I could get down and clean this out of once I get the heater box out of there. Let's see if I can turn on the vacuum cleaner and see what I can do. So it's going to get noisy for a minute. All right, so it's vacuumed out, blew it out. It's probably clean as it's gonna get. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might put some rust prohibitive in there and see if I can dump some paint in there, but I don't know. Just getting all of the leaves and twigs out to keep it from rusting anymore. I don't know. Got to think about that. But the reason I wanted that cleaned out is because I want to put this inner fender in. And I figured it would be a whole lot easier to get to that, although I wasn't smart enough to pull the fender off first time. But be that as it may, my thought was, I want to finish this inner fender. That way I can kind of figure out where this stuff is going to mount. I got the water bottle and the air cleaner. So now that we got that, let me go dig up some metal. I don't think this inner fender is going to be that tough to make. Let me go dig up some metal. Now I'll set the camera back over there and try to set up a table here and see if we can knock this thing out. Okay, I found some metal. I think it's big enough. It's a 18 gauge shelf, so that's pretty close to what this is, I think. I'm going to take out the tripod and I'm going to show you kind of what we got in front of us. So, you know, we saw this. This is where the battery is. Looks like we're going to have to come all the way down to here to patch this. It's pretty corroded right there, so we're probably going to have to come around and cut all of that out. Don't know how thin this is. Going to have to check this out after we wire wheel it. Take a look at this. So I don't know if we're going to have to replace this or if we can come along and cut this. Probably going to end up having to replace it. The piece that I had noticed is over here where the hood hinges are. That's doubled up right there. There's a plate that's spot welded in behind there, so we're going to have to drill the spot welds out. I think there's 6 there, and I don't know where all the spot welds here are. We'll see that once we hit it with wire wheel. That's going to take me just a little bit to form that piece. You know, I need Carl from Make It Custom. It wouldn't take him no time to fix that, but we're going to get her done. So I'm going to put you back on a tripod and I'm going to start wire wheeling. I'll see you when it's done. Well, that's a mess. Well, that one's going to be interesting. We kind of need to remake that whole thing. Okay, well, this one's not too bad to remake. Just flat and bend it. We ought to be able to handle that. Let's get it cleaned up and see what it looks like. Well, guys, I'm going to have to think about how we're going to build that, but it looks like to me we need to do quite a bit. This is pretty good metal here, but it's kind of thin up here on this edge. I don't know. I may hit it with a flat disc and try to get it down to where it's shiny and so I can see what's going on, but this is all going to have to get replaced. I think I'll take another walk to the pasture and see if one of them other trucks has this section good. I know that piece is rusted out, but I didn't pay much attention to this. I thought it was just a little bitty patch here. Let me go look at that and I'll get back to you. Okay, I drug my wife's grandpa's truck up. You can see we had a flatbed on it. We used it as a service truck. It's seen better days, but let's have a look at this. it looks like it's a little more solid than the one we got. Now, you can see daylight through the battery, where the battery is, but that doesn't concern me as much as the area up there. So, if you haven't had if you haven't messed with the International, there's bolts everywhere. In many ways, it's like the 60s Fords, although I think this is worse. There's like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5 bolts back there. There's, you know, I don't even remember how many's up here. There's 5 or 6 that go around here, and then you got the fender bolts, and then there's 2 or 3 bolts that's along the door. Those aren't so bad. These, it's like the engineers stayed up at night. Let's just say they stayed up at night trying to find the best place to put these so you can't get them out. Okay, so I'm gonna put the camera on a tripod and I'm gonna start taking this thing off. I won't make you watch me taking this off in real time. I'll cut it down because it may take me a while to get this thing off here. And I'll get back with you once we got this fender in, you know, we got this inner fender in our hands and we're back in the shop in there. Well, that was 2 hours worth of work. Let's see if we can count how many bolts is in this stinking thing. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, and 24. Now this one, if you haven't done Internationals, you need to remember this one. This holds the top of the fender in, and to get to it, there's a plug inside the door jamb. At least the 70 that we got in the shop and this 73 is like that. I assume all this body style is like that. So whatever I said, 24 bolts to get that thing apart. And there they are. It looks like the hood. Let's see, I'll get that in the sunlight. There we go. It looks like the hood, where the hood hinge goes, is not in bad shape. I was trying to get out of the sunlight here. There we go. It looks like the hood piece is not bad. The battery tray is kind of thin, like the other one, but I'm not really that worried about this. This is nice and flat. Well, that makes me happy. I was kind of wondering how I was going to make those deep bends for that hood hinge area. And it looks like the fender's not in bad shape, although the fender I got's not that bad, but this not bad. So I think we'll load the fender well up, take it up to the shop, see if we can clean it up a little bit, patch a hole, and get it mounted on the truck so I can start mocking up for the air cleaner and the radiator tank. All right, I'll meet you back in the shop. Well, I can't say this is not disappointing. I got this other inner fender well up here, and you saw me peck around on it when it was out there, but apparently with the hood hinge on it, I wasn't pecking where I should have been pecking. All right, I'm gonna flip you around here. Let's have a look at this thing. So that is thin right there. Kind of like the other one was. Let me turn it over. I'm not sure this is much better than the other one. Well, shit. Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna get this done in this video. I'm gonna have to see what router bits I got, see if I can make a hammer for them, because I know my bead roller won't do anything that deep. And that's the only way I know how to do it, is just beat it in there. I don't have a planishing hammer or a power hammer or any of that stuff, so we're gonna have to beat it in there. See if I can make a T-handle punch, if you will. That's about that shape. It's interesting, that thing's got a flat top on it. So it's not quite a square draw, but it's sort of a square draw with round corners. Anyway, it's gonna take me a bit. I think we're gonna close this video up. I was hoping to get this thing on to sort of wrap up the video, but so subscribe, you know, hit the bell, like, make a comment, share it with your friends. And until next time.